This week we read the Torah portion of Korach in the book of Numbers, beginning in chapter 16. We read about the very first rebellion against the authority of Moshe, the authority of the Torah, the rebellion of Korach and his followers. We read, now Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahat, the son of Levi, and Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliav and On. These people, they rose up before Moshe with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, men who were regularly summoned of the congregation, men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moshe and Aaron and said to them, "You take too much upon yourselves, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you raise yourselves above the congregation of the Lord?" And first of all, this accusation, totally unfounded, is really quite ludicrous, because we know that Moshe, was totally selfless, totally dedicated to the welfare of his people. It was Moses back in Exodus 15 when we read about the complaints regarding the manna, Moses who dropped the aleph of the self and he said, "V'nachnu ma," referring to himself and Aaron, what are we? He had no sense of self, he had no sense of pride or ego. The Torah testified about him. God says he is the most humble man on the face of the earth. So Korach says, why do you raise yourselves above the congregation of the Lord? We're all holy. And this was really unjustified and not founded in reality, because Moses did not raise himself above everyone else. And so what was the reaction of Moshe when he heard this? We read, and when Moshe heard it, he fell on his face. And interestingly, in the Hebrew, of course, when we read this verse, we read in verse 4 of chapter 16, Vayishma Moshe, Vayipol al panav. And Moshe heard, he fell upon his face. But really the word here, Vayishma, the word Shema, is much more than he simply heard. It's he perceived, he understood. He understood exactly what Korach was talking to. So this wasn't a question of a mere hearing. This was a question of Moshe understanding what was behind this complaint, the background. And this is why Moshe fell on his face, because he understood that Korach and his men were not getting it at all. By denying the divine nature of Moshe's mission, by cloaking themselves, as it were, in a cloak of righteousness, concerned about everyone, concerned about the entire congregation, but really coming from a place of total jealousy and self-interest, Moshe realized this was tremendously dangerous, because Korach was the embodiment of the very opposite qualities and characteristics of Moses. While Moses was totally dedicated to the klal, to the nation in general, and thought nothing of himself, Korach looked only at self-advancement. And Moses fell on his face in understanding, because the very basis of Korach's complaint was also unfounded. He said, the entire congregation is holy and God is in their midst. And that really is not the case. The entire congregation is called to be holy. The entire congregation has a goal to be holy and to uplift themselves to holiness. But at this point, they're not yet. That can't yet be said in the desert. The goal is to become holy, but that is not a title or an appellation that can be ascribed to everyone, or that can just be taken by all who seek it. And so Moses' reaction was commensurate to his deep understanding of the danger that this rebellion really signified, which was, if this is going to happen, if the nation is going to divest itself of the goal of really rising to holiness and try to just take that title without working on it, without deserving it, without building up to it, and just think about the pettiness of self-interest and wanting a title and wanting command and wanting authority. This is such a diametric difference between Korach and Moses. Moses, the person who couldn't even refer to himself with the self, with the aleph. And Korach, the person who looked and said, why are you taking all of this authority? Why are you taking all of this office for yourself? We're all holy. Korach, who really only thought about himself, and Moses, who never thought about himself, who was the epitome and the very paragon of true Jewish leadership, to put the entire nation above himself and only to be concerned with really helping to bring the nation to a level of total holiness and devotion.